part of my brain trust, you might call him, Stuart Meyer. I've known Stuart over a year. He used to be in charge of the National Barbecue Association, some kind of association. He can tell you about that later. But we're looking at developing a pizza marketing organization. And so I got Stuart involved early. And as part of that goal, I've got to know Stuart a lot better. He's a storyteller. He's done videos. He did the story for us a couple of months ago. Do you remember this? Little Pops out of Chicago. He is a Chicago man himself. So he was able to give us the insight that he's had working with a mom and pop operation called Little Pops. And here's my autographed copy. They had such a good picture, and we had the peels out there, so I got an autographed copy of Mike and Vicki Nelson. Thank you, Mike and Vicki Nelson. But this just gives you an idea of who Stuart is. And he's multi-talented. He's an artist, a musician. He's really a man who thinks about marketing in storytelling ways. Everything's very interesting to Stuart, or he makes it interesting. And so I would like to welcome him today to tell us about the special project that I've had him working on, a survey of the pizza industry and why the pizza culture is so strong, and what is special about people that are in the pizza industry. I asked Stuart to think deeply about that, and he did some research, and we've exchanged a lot of information. And today we have Stuart with us to share what he can tell us. Stuart, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Steve. It is definitely an honor to be here presenting to a community that's near and dear to my heart, the national pizzeria community. In terms of my life, it's played a big role, and we'll hear more about it if you haven't already read the story from the May PMQ or the June PMQ magazine with regard to that. So we're here today to talk about insights that is hopefully going to help make you more successful in terms of really what is the heart and soul, as well as the mind aspects of the pizzeria industry. But first, let's start with my story and as to why I'm sitting before you. And Steve kind of gave you some insights into this. This is me at a much younger age, but growing up, I was absolutely obsessed with pizza. I've been making pizza homemade since around this age. And yes, that is a KISS t-shirt. It was my favorite t-shirt growing up. I always loved sharing this photo. But it was such a huge, pivotal part of my life. And, that was conveyed into the Never Ending Story cover story in June. But really, my own pizza story goes back to my hometown of Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is where I'm originally from. And another Michael, Pizzeria Michael in my life, Michael Pulcini, who's in this photo. This is a poster from a short documentary film I did a number of years ago about a mom and pop pizzeria in New Jersey. But basically, Michael and Lena Pulcini moved from New Jersey to my hometown back in the early 80s and opened up of all things, a New York pizzeria, which was pretty amazing. The pizzeria was like a second home to me. Michael and Lena were like a second family to me. It opened my eyes up to the special role that pizzerias, and especially independent pizzerias, play in our lives, not just to satisfy our hunger, but to really create a sense of connection and a sense of family. From age 8 to 18, I pretty much grew up in the pizzeria. Later on in life, I went on, when I was 18, I actually went to work for them, delivering pizzas and cooking in the back kitchen. I loved getting slammed on Friday and Saturday nights, doing pasta dishes and sandwiches, calzones. I got permission every now and then to make a pizza, but that was Michael's domain. He made all the pizzas in there. But in 1991, they closed and moved back to New Jersey, and it was really a profoundly traumatic moment for me because I worked with them as the ship was going down. If you would say, the national chain had grown in my town, and they kind of got squeezed out somewhat. And it was really sad because I felt powerless to help them save their business. I kept trying to come up with ideas. What could we do? Trying to stay upbeat, trying to be supportive to Michael and to Lena. They were going through a very difficult time with their 2 small children, trying to figure out what the future held. And to this day, there's one recurring dream I have in my life, and that is the dream where the pizza pub, Michael and Lena come back to town to open up the pizza pub. It was such a pivotal part of my childhood, and even to this day, they do still run a pizzeria. Michael's been in the business for over 40 years now. They have Naples Pizzeria in Spring Lake, New Jersey. And long story short, this film that I made was actually a reunion between us after about 27 years, I think it was, since I had last seen them. Had stayed in touch over the years, but it's really a cool insight into the life of a pizzeria owner. It was kind of the unexpected documentary. They didn't know till that night I was going to film some stuff, and that's what it became. So, but that sort of fast forwards to another Michael, which Michael Nelson, Mike and Vicki Nelson, have New York roots. They moved to my hometown here in Naperville, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, along with Austin, Preston, and Autumn, their kids, overcoming their family's financial collapse after Mike had sold his previous business that all fell apart. They were trapped here in the Midwest, and they turned to their New York roots to find their salvation in opening a New York pizzeria, of all things, which was exciting to me because anyone who spent any time in the Chicago area or lived in the Chicago area know there is a great absence of New York pizza here in the Chicago pizza world. So I invite you to watch this documentary film or read the article for the full story behind that. But I just wanted to share this story to set the stage that over the past few years, I've been working with them, focusing on storytelling, social media, food photography. We turned New York Pizza Dreams into a series, which will soon be a pizza TV series. I also began help with my background in executive management as a CEO of a national the National Barbecue Association, help them with their business analysis, crunching numbers, sort of looking at the business from that side. And we worked on brand culture and then looked at what the future held in terms of expansion. We doubled our year-over-year growth, 36% in 2019, and we're trending right around 38% year-over-year growth for 2020, on pace to top 1.5 million revenue for this year. So we invite you to keep an eye out for the New York Pizza Dreams series, and gives you ideas on how we tell our story. And the best news is we're actually ready to open the Little Pops Express, our second location, which actually our soft opening happens of all times tomorrow. So you can imagine how nerve-wracking, exciting times are today. But we're here to talk about the culture of pizza study. And I really love working with Steve and PMQ. His passion for independent pizzerias and for this industry is so authentic and so genuine. It's been a pleasure to connect with him and find a way to work on this and find a way to serve each of you watching this. It's a dream of mine to do everything that I can to help family-run businesses, mom and pop businesses, especially pizzerias, since it's so near and dear to my heart. So first and foremost, well, why do we do a culture of pizza study, and what is it all about? Working with Steve, having conversations over the year, and his strong vision for igniting a national independent pizzeria movement, wanting to help independent pizzerias sell more pizzas, to increase the human connection and happiness through pizza that we all know about. That sort of evolved into that, combined with the need and desire to help address the issues that are most pressing for independent pizzeria owners. We came up with this concept for this culture of pizza study to focus not just on the business aspects of the business, but really what drives and motivates the hearts and minds and souls of the pizza industry. What motivates pizzeria owners? What makes them successful? What differentiates them from their competition? What are the biggest challenges that independent pizzeria owners face? And I think the biggest key here is the difference between financially more successful pizzerias and financially less successful pizzerias, which there's one big finding in here that I think is very illuminating for all of us. And it's something that I think every pizzeria can take and put into practice beginning today. So I'll be excited to get to that. So Moving into the methodology, we had 2 phases for this study. The first was a qualitative phase, and that's just a fancy word that basically means it's open-ended, unranked responses. Think of it like one-on-one interviews. So we began with a PMQ representative sample audience, majority of which are pizzeria owners. We sent a survey that included a bunch of open-ended questions and responses. Some of you watching this may have participated in that. If that is the case, thank you so much. We had 249 completed surveys, so think of it like 249 one-on-one interviews. From that, I did a deep dive into the results, doing a in-depth keyword analysis and ranking to try to identify what are the concepts and keywords that resonated most at top of mind. And this is kind of a quick look of how we began to do that. How frequently did certain words come up? In what context were they mentioned in responses, so that we could begin to narrow that into the second phase of this study, which is basically doing a quantitative survey. And it's a traditional survey, basically enabling us to get this in front of a different audience, taking those highest ranked keywords and concepts, and then quantifying or ranking them in terms of most important to least important in terms of that. So we sent the survey to 2 representative samples of 2,500 people. We got 428 participants. And when we say a sample is representative, it basically means it's scientifically set to be representative of the audience as a whole. So 428 responses is actually a very good response for this. And it enables us to take those findings and draw some statistically valid conclusion as representative of our audience as a whole, meaning our universe of the pizza industry, predominantly independent pizzeria owners. So here's what we have learned from your peers. We're going to start through the sort of the top line results and talk a little bit about that. And then we are going to go deeper into sort of the sub-analysis where we really find some of our intriguing findings on what separates the success of one group versus the success of another group, the success of one independent pizzeria owner versus the success of another pizzeria owner. So our first question was, please indicate your role in the pizza industry. And 71.73%, or rounded up 72% of our audience own pizzerias. 11.2%, they don't own a pizzeria, but they work for a pizzeria. And then roughly 9%, 10% if you round it up, provide equipment, supplies, or other items in support of the pizzeria industry. And then we had 7% of folks that don't work in any aspect of the pizza industry, but they just love pizza. And God bless them for responding. They a lot of these questions tie directly to the industry. So the next question, please indicate the size of your pizzeria operation. 61% were single location independent pizzerias. Overall, 85% of this response was independent pizzerias, with roughly 7% single location franchisee and 5% multiple location franchisee pizzerias. And then we had 3% that were multiple locations that are corporate owned. And these are sort of qualifying questions that we use to sort of set up our sub-analysis on the end, because we want to understand what's the difference between a big corporate franchise owner and a single location independent pizzeria owner. So that enables us to look at some of those differences and differentiations. So the first major question we asked, which 3 words below describe what you do better than any other pizzeria within your market? And the top response was quality. And we look at sort of the top 3 or 4 responses to glean sort of what the story is here. So quality at 54%, 33% roughly said their pizza's better than anyone else, 30% said service, and then 27% said community. And I'm going to give a little spoiler alert here, is the theme of community emerged as very important within this survey. We're going to be talking a lot about community as we move along here. And it might challenge some of your assumptions that you have about what makes a pizzeria successful. But we're going to share these insights that really gleans into what makes a pizzeria successful in terms of these attributes. The next question was, please select the category that most closely reflects your annual gross revenue, or for multi-location pizzerias, your average gross per store revenue. So we kind of wanted to get a sense of financially, where is our response group at? So 31%, 500,000 to $1 million, 28% less than 500,000. Combine those, 58% of our response group locations made less than $1 million in revenue per year, and then on up the line in terms of the higher levels. So roughly, we're looking at locations making under $1 million, and we'll start to see in the sub-analysis some significant insights with regard to that community factor and overall annual revenue. The next question, please indicate how you feel about the pizza business. The good news here is 70.36% said they love the pizza industry. And I would argue there's probably not too many professions where 70% of professionals say they love what they do. 23% roughly say, I like it. So 93% either like or love the pizza industry, which is, I think, pretty awesome. In the grand scheme of things, with less than 1% saying, I don't really care for the pizza industry. And, you know, when you look at apathy, roughly 6% said it's simply how I make my living, which means they show up to make the pizza, make their money, pay their bills, build a life. So I think, to me, this inspires me. It's not surprising, having worked in and around the pizzeria industry, and what a magnet it is for people who are passionate about what they do and why they do it, which we're going to get into here as in beginning with the next question. So what 3 phrases below describe what you enjoy most about the pizzeria industry? And here's where it starts to get interesting. In terms of what our respondents enjoy most, 32% roughly, if you round it up, supporting my community, followed by making people happy, connecting with people through pizza. So your top 3 responses already, it's about community, people, and connecting, not about making pizza right up at the top. And if you look at this response group, making profit and making pizza ranks very low, at the very bottom of reasons our respondents enjoy, what they enjoy most about the pizza business. And this is very, very interesting. In Inside the Pizza Box, Michael Placchini, my documentary film, at one point was talking about how people love to come and share their stories. They tell us all about their lives. And he jokes that, I feel like a regular priest here. It's like people come and give their confession. I'm sure a lot of people listening might laugh at that because, people do open up in pizzerias and to owners and just sharing their lives with them. And, it really is a rewarding thing, because there's 3 scientifically proven pathways to happiness. And that's the strength of our social connections, having a sense of identity and a sense of belonging. And if you think about what we do in the pizzeria business, even though pizzeria owners work very, very long weeks, some of them feel trapped inside that pizza box. But at the end of the day, connection, identity, and belonging is a key reward for everything that you all do. So this was a very interesting slide, continuing to illuminate our story here. The next question, which of the following are the 3 biggest challenges you face in the pizza business? And as it might or probably not come as any surprise, right at the top is employees and labor are the 2 biggest things. And qualitatively, I've seen it in action. I've seen it happen. 59% say finding employees who care as much as I do about the pizzeria and our customers. I think it was a very telling result there. It's not insurmountable, and I might introduce a cross comparison. When we look at the Pizza Hall of Fame, and since I've started doing some work for PMQ, I've looked really deeply at the Pizza Hall of Fame. And if you don't know what the Pizza Hall of Fame is, it's basically pizzerias that have been in business for 50 or more years. There's a feature at the end of every PMQ magazine, which I think is one of the coolest and most valuable pieces of information for any pizzeria owner. Because if you've been in the pizza business successfully for 50 or more years, I'm all ears to hear exactly what it is that's made that possible. But qualitatively speaking, I read through so many of those Pizza Hall of Fame articles, which are so well structured and written in a one-page format. And I'll say so many of those pizzerias that have been in business for 50 or more years talk about their employees as VIPs. Employees are like family. They're treated like a vital asset within their business. They're developed. They're given a sense of ownership. And many have employees who have been with them sometimes for decades, working in the same pizzeria. I actually recently visited one of these Hall of Fame pizzerias during a quick family vacation over to the Michigan coast a couple of weeks ago, and had the good fortune to sit and talk to some of their employees with a mask, nicely socially distanced, and the daughter of the founder. And it corroborated and resonated. I watched how these employees worked with customers, and when I first walked in, I thought they were the owners. And it was an amazing thing because the devotion and commitment to people and the community and customers was unmistakable. And I smiled when I mistakenly thought that the person who greeted me was the owner, and she wasn't. And she's not even a full-time employee of the pizzeria. Mainly works on the weekends, but was amazing. Was just incredible. So think of it, if you're struggling with finding employees that care as much as you do, and juggling the labor question, it's not a problem. It's just a situation that needs to be resolved. And through PMQ, and I think through the lessons of those that have gone before, there are peers out there that can help you figure out how to get it right. It's not an insurmountable barrier, and it's just about learning the right way to do it. So there again, another one of the big reasons we did this is so PMQ can figure out their own content strategy, editorial strategy, and how can they best help set independent pizzerias up for success in diving more deeply into some of these issues. I mean, I know they've covered all of this over the years, but beginning to prioritize and maybe double down in some of these areas might be on the way as a result of this culture of pizza study. The next question, which of the following have been the keys to your success in the pizza business? Quality, strong customer relationships, consistency and community involvement, making customers feel important. And, here again, clearly community and people continues to be a big theme in this study, but then the issues of quality and consistency of product, which is a huge one. And the work that I do with Little Pops and work that I've done with restaurants in the past, one of the things I love doing most is food photography. I do all the food photography for Little Pops. Someone who's much smarter than me in the restaurant business once said 90% of our taste buds are in our eyeballs. And that's so very true. But one of the challenges, if you have incredible food photography, it needs to look exactly like that and taste like that each and every time, each and every order. Now, when we do food photography, there's a little extra effort that's always put into making sure it looks just right. But at the end of the day, quality control, making sure the product is as close to the same every time as it can be, I can relate to that, is a big key to success, because it only takes a short number of disappointments in terms of it not being the same or it being different every time to where you start to see customers drift away. And oftentimes they won't bring it to your attention. But if those customers do bring it to your attention, that is a great big gift, because then you can determine when the pizza was made, who made it, focus in, and if there's additional training that needs to take place, obviously that's something that can be achieved. So these are all great opportunities. Moving on to the next question, which of the following most closely reflects the reason you got into the pizza business? And interestingly, you were either born into it or you migrated towards the pizza business. The top response, 20% said it's the family business. Others working in either another industry or another area of the restaurant industry have made the move into pizza. Probably something that you all will relate to. I'm fascinated by the story of how people get into the life style and the careers that they are. And so this gives us a little bit of a perspective and approach to it. I think we all know that independent pizzerias are often family-run businesses, not just the husband-wife team, but the kids are involved as well. 4 of the 5 family members in the Nelson family, actually all 5 of them are involved in the business. One of them full-time, another one in an overarching way, and then the youngest pitches in, especially on particularly busy nights. And I think that's part of what makes the business of pizza so cool, because it is something that families do together, for better, for worse sometimes, we know, but that togetherness time is something that a lot of pizzeria owners really value. The next question, what are the 3 things you love most about pizza? Great question. The top answers, 41% making people happy, 33% bringing people together, 28% pizza creates a sense of community. I think you're starting to see where this is going. The love of pizza is universal. And then once we get down past that, oh yeah, it's how I make my living. And yes, making pizza is one of the things I love most about it. But the takeaway really is people and community, a great big theme here, with the actual act of making pizza and its many nuances, sort of second importance when it comes to that. And that big finding is on the way, where we start to see how this translates into annual revenue with regard to your approach and mind frame for people in community, contrasted by the art of making pizza. So let's dive into those unique differences between these sub audiences, and without boring you too much with regard to statistical method and scientific validity, we can only go into the sub audiences what has the greatest response, at least of 50 or more participants. And from that standpoint, the 2 areas we were able to dive into deeply was independent pizzeria owners, whether it's 1 or more locations, and then also looking deeply into the differences between these audiences when it comes to annual revenue. So the first subgroup was size of pizzeria operation. And what a sub finding is where everything else that's not included here, all the audiences were pretty much the same within that margin of error, statistically speaking. But the sub-analysis is interesting because it shows how 2 different sub-audiences are statistically significantly different. So that's where we look to clues, what separates one audience from another, and what's the difference between one audience and another. So in this finding, those who were owners of multiple location independent pizzerias struggle more at 47% in building and managing my teams of employees than single location independent pizzerias. The lesson is, the bigger you get, the more challenging to manage people, and those responsible for delivering that make or break customer experience gets more challenging. It's something that you shouldn't take lightly. I can tell you from my experience both in the pizza industry and the barbecue industry, if you're on the pathway to expanding, hopefully there's a family member that's motivated and involved that can help begin the expansion. But from there, finding the right people who have, most importantly, the right personality, the right drive, and the right motivation makes a huge difference. We've spent a lot of time at Little Pops thinking about how can we succeed in this facet as we continue to look towards expansion. And there's a page that we can all take from a national non-pizza chain, but Culver's. I don't know if you all are familiar with the Culver's chain. They're Butterburgers, custard restaurants. When they expand and they award franchises, they love to award those franchises to husband-wife teams that have families. And that's 2 important reasons, because they want the whole family to be involved, because the more committed the family is, the less tension there is in personal life, and everyone's committed to that success. And the other piece of it is, you want people to be in a position where failure is not an option. And I don't mean to sound crude when I say that, but it's a huge motivator when, succeed or when success or failure is truly that make or break. One of the beautiful things about the Little Pop's story and New York Pizza Dreams, is their family had built a successful snow removal business in New York, just 90 miles up the Hudson from New York City. And that is the business that Mike and Vicky had sold to a Midwestern company. And that's how they ended up in Naperville. And sadly, the proceeds of the sale was tied to the future of the business. And within a couple of years, the business went bankrupt and left them high and dry. And that's, where they were in a position where they struggled for a few years, when they finally came to the realization they needed to fall back on their own New York roots and open up a New York pizzeria here in the Midwest. And they were very much in a failure is not an option type scenario. So when you think towards expansion, I think those are some clues that I can provide from clients I've worked with. I know this is true in the barbecue world as well, with sort of small multi-location family-owned restaurants. The next subgroup finding ties to annual gross location or per store revenue. Those making less than $500,000 a year were more likely to say effectively managing my business overhead and expenses was a challenge they face in the pizza business. Tied to that was the cost of labor being a big challenge for those making between $1 to $1.5 million a year at 54%. And then those who said building and manage my team was those saying building and managing my team was a bigger challenge for those making between $500,000 to $1 million. So growing pains are something that are faced by pizzerias at all sizes. But then again, it's going to sound like a shameless plug for PMQ, but it's really true. And this is kind of what PMQ wanted to understand. This is, how do you overcome these things? These are issues that PMQ wants to continue to delve deeper into. And the notion that Steve talked earlier about the Pizza Marketing Network is we want to find more ways to get peer-to-peer support going within this industry. I can direct you to the think tank. If you have specific questions, a great way to tap into pizzeria owners that are maybe at a different phase than you are, or maybe been around longer, or it's an opportunity for you to help other pizzerias that pose questions. But these are some of the specific and unique challenges within pizzerias at certain revenue levels, and most likely phases of their pizzeria, from early phase to long time established pizzerias. The next one, and this is where we get into our most significant finding, and this could easily be a game changer insight for you. And this ties into annual gross location or per store revenue. And I'm going to be very specific to make sure everyone understands what this means, because I think it's a biggie. Those making between $1 to $1.5 million a year were more likely to identify community involvement and developing and retaining our team of employees as a key to success in the pizza business. I would argue $1 to $1.5 million for a single store location is a good annual revenue. I think you all probably would as well. By contrast, those making less than $500,000 a year cited community involvement and developing and retaining our team of employees as a key to success in the business. So let me put that into context. Those making between 1.1 to 1.5 million a year, 39% of those said the community involvement, and then 22% developing and retaining their team of employees was a key to success. Where those making less than $500,000 a year, only 8% of which said community involvement, and 6% saying developing and retaining our team of employees was a key to success. Meaning these are two different success factors and two very different annual revenue levels. So if you're making less than $500,000 a year, or you're not making the annual revenue that you think you're capable of making, the answer is probably going to begin with community involvement and developing and retaining your team of employees. And I would argue, and if you're guilty of it, I'll leave it to your own thoughts, but sometimes small independent businesses and restaurants kind of feel like talent is a revolving door, and it doesn't have to be. And even if it is, it doesn't mean while the time that you have talent and employees that are on board that you can't do more to mentor them, train them, lead by example, show them, help them understand what customers love, help them understand what your culture is, indoctrinate them in your story. That's one of the big things that we've been working on doing at Little Pops, because it's a great story. Every independent pizzeria has a story. We captured a ton of these stories as a part of this process, and you'll be hearing more about those as we move on. So continuing on with that, those making between 500,000 to $1 million a year, we're more likely to say pizza creates a sense of community. So think about your own mind frame and your own approach to your pizzeria business and the role that your employees and community involvement plays in that. And then continuing on with that, those making between $1 to $1.5 million were more likely to identify community as what they do better than any other pizzeria in their market. By contrast, those making less than $500,000 a year at 15% cited community as what they do better than other pizzerias in their market. So yet another research research point here that shows if you make under $500,000 a year, maybe you're not placing enough importance on community. And not only is what you do well, but what you do better than any other pizzeria. And finally, those making less than $500,000 a year were more likely to say being creative with my pizza and the art of making pizza were the things they enjoy most about the pizza business. At the same time, they were less likely to cite supporting my community as something they enjoyed most about the pizza business. Now, we know there's all different types of personalities, and I've worked around lots of different chef personalities over the years, and I know how serious some folks take the culinary side of their food business, their restaurant business, their pizzeria business. And I'm not saying that's not important, and neither is the study, but don't make that more important than it is to get out in front of your customers, to get out in front of your community, to do things within your community that is going to put the community in a position to help to support you. At the end of the day, when it comes to revenue and longevity, we know from this study, and we know anecdotally from the Pizza Hall of Fame, those are long-term survival factors and surthrival factors, as I like to say, because don't survive, you want to thrive. You don't just want to survive in your business. So the bottom line, community engagement, involvement, and support may be as important, if not more important, than the artistry and creativity behind your pizza in terms of revenue, and I would add longevity in that. So that brings us to the questions portion, and I open it up for any questions, and I'm going to move back to the home screen to see if anyone has any questions, or Steve, if you have any questions.
I'd like you to remind our viewers when this was taken.
Yes.
Because that's important to the relevance of this, of the findings.
It is, and my apologies for not including that in the methodology section, but the two phases of this survey took place in May of this year. So it's very fresh data, May of 2020. Yeah, it's very timely.
Yeah, I just thought it was fascinating that pizza, people have an emotional connection to pizza. People in the industry know that. And why is pizza so popular? Well, maybe it's because of the kind of people that are in the pizza industry to start off with. People have good memories of being treated well, having special occasions in pizzeria. And it really is gratifying to see this. You always had this feeling about our industry being special, but it's great to see it in black and white. Absolutely.
I mean, I love pizzeria owners. If you're listening to this, I love each and every one of you because I know who you are, even though I've never met it. And, you know, I made a conscious attempt over a decade ago to basically structure the work that I do around people that I really want to be around and people that I care about. So absolutely. And Steve, I think the other interesting insight, if we look at what's happened in these pandemic times, we had that quick OMG conversation when we realized that everything was about to be locked down here in Illinois, as it was in all states when this happened. And, you know, I think there's a lot of difference and lessons that can be learned between the pizzerias that were so busy they couldn't handle the volume,
right?
The pizzerias that closed their doors because it was so slow in the grand scheme of this. I think if you're a pizzeria that has devoted a lot of time to cultivating the connection with your community, doing lots of great things, then you were overwhelmed with volume in these times. The other story point is don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and that's one of the really important things. And as as soon as this pandemic hit, one of the first things at Little Pops we did is we started our Frontline Heroes program, where almost immediately we began taking pizzas to grocery store workers, frontline workers, hospitals, obviously, healthcare workers. And we very quickly turned that into a program that our customers could get involved with. So making a $10 donation, they could basically sponsor a pizza that goes to a frontline worker. So from a storytelling standpoint, that shows you and gives you an example of how we were immediately responsive to community and getting involved in the community. And I think we're somewhere over 4,000 slices of pizza donated. We still have a backlog of pizzas. We had people donating $500, $1,000, to give a pizza to a frontline worker. And we to show, on the box, the pizza box for each of these frontline pizzas, we wrote the name of the person or the family who donated this pizza. So when we delivered it, yes, here it's from Little Pops, but it's from the Smith family or from the Williams family that went out to those frontline workers. So that's just an example I would share, community involvement in action. And it's certainly, Little Pops has always been involved in the community from the very start. And by contrast, not in the pizza industry, but I've worked with folks in the other industry that they had a great built-in audience in their location to the point they did nothing in the community. And that restaurant has struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled. I just think it's such a huge insight and something that, like I say, you can start working on today if your community outreach and involvement strategy does not exist or isn't quite as strong as you would think it should be.
Okay, Stuart. Well, we ran over our 30 minutes. I try to keep things at 30 minutes, but then David Portnoy tries to keep it to one bite, and he takes more than one bite every once in a while. So this is the first time we've gone over 30 minutes, but we will wrap it up. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really enjoyed the survey. I valued it, and I wanted to share it with our audience because this is a really important time for the pizza industry. And this is I just to say it really quickly, Domino's Pizza just finished their second quarter. They had a 14% increase over last year. They 75% of all their sales now are digital. Mm-hmm. So independents have to match that, because once you're in the digital world, your profits are higher because digital dollars yield more profit. But if Domino's is selling 75% of their pizza online, they're also getting them in rewards programs, and those rewards programs create more purchase frequency. Yeah. And that's the other way of raising sales, not just with more customers, but with getting those people to order more pizzas. And if they do that, then they're not going to independent pizzerias as much. So
that is such a great point, Steve. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
And now, I am a former Domino's pizza franchisee, so I'm not against Domino's. I love Domino's. They've really taught us a lot of stuff that's important for us to know, but they don't need our help. They don't need PMQ's help. The independents are the people that can use all the help they can get, and we'd like to do that. We'd like to take the power of independence. They have 99% of the pizza adventure, variety, and quality. And I think independent is the biggest brand in the country. There's the most locations, and together I think independent pizza can declare a new pizza revolution. And that's all I got to say.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, I want to, on behalf of our audience, myself, we had so many conversations that has led to our collaboration, but over this time I've gotten to know you and Linda, not personally, but through all the stories that you've shared. And, I'll tell you what PMQ is doing over these past few decades is just phenomenal. And I can tell everyone listening with absolute certainty that, your head and your heart and your conviction and passion of simply strengthening the independent pizza industry and helping independent pizzerias sell more pizzas cannot be questioned. And I admire you greatly, and just very just impressed by everything that you've done in your journey, in your story, Steve.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you're on our team, and you're going to be helping us in the months to come on our next chapter. And we look forward to working with such a team. I feel really blessed to have a really competent group of really smart people. You're like the founding fathers. You, David Fisher, Ryan Baggett. All the people that we've assembled to be part of our team are U.S. Pizza team members. So
absolutely,
we're ready to do it.
The true experts are all of you that are listening, all of our independent pizzeria owners. And, if you participate in these surveys, then you've gotten involved. So we're going to continue to find ways to get everyone involved who is on the front line of the independent pizzeria industry, to have your voice heard, to be involved, to participate. I think there's nothing but exciting things coming down the way as we continue to work together to really strengthen and further expand the excitement around the independent pizzeria industry. Perfectly timed there.
Perfectly timed. I didn't realize that. Okay. All right. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.